Latest GDP figures are out. In fact, they came out earlier today. The economy contracted by 0.7% in the second quarter. The most significant negative contributors to growth were manufacturing, agriculture and trade. Let's talk more now about these latest data with One Life's Truth About Money facilitator Hayley Parry. Why should you and I care that GDP is not growing? Good afternoon, Hayley. Welcome to today here on eNCA. Thank you very much for your time. As expected, the contraction happened. I mean, it was just a question of the number, and some economists ahead were predicting 0.9% contraction, or anywhere between 0.6 and 0.9. We got 0.7. But it's not good for the country.
No, Dan, it's not good for the country. And it's, it's actually really simple. When the economy isn't growing, it's bad news for consumers, because what it means is that on the horizon, we're potentially going to see job cuts, we potentially see wage decreases, and for you and I as well, consumers need to continue, if they've got any belt left, that is, to continue to tighten it, because not only do we have this environment where we know the economy is not growing, but we also know that come the end of September, interest rates are likely to increase. So anyone who's busy servicing debt, those, the cost of servicing debt is going to go up. So at the moment, it's a pretty dire picture for consumers.
Yeah, and when the economy doesn't grow, there are no jobs created as well. And with a high rate of unemployment that we're currently battling with, joblessness is also said to be affected.
Yeah, the reality is that when you have a growing economy, you have jobs being created, employees get paid more, and then they've got more money to spend on goods and services. And so that's ideally what we want. And what we have received in the stats from Stats SA today is confirmation that the opposite is happening. So as you say, one of the risks we have is that companies, when consumers spend less, that means that they have to look at their finances, and they may need to make cuts, whether it's jobs or levels of income or the number of days that employees work, for example. So it's not a comfortable space to be for consumers, just as it is for companies where they were looking to having consumers spending more with them on goods and services. And unfortunately, when you're sitting in this kind of environment, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, and we're also living in a very high inflationary setup. I mean, our inflation now is above 7%. That puts more pressure on the pocket. You said we should anticipate higher interest rates in September.
Yeah, so the MPC meets on the 21st of September. The markets have already priced in a 0.75 basis point increase. Every time the MPC has met since November, they've increased interest rates. And what that means on a really practical level is that the cost of servicing debt goes up. Our interest rates go up. So if you have home loans or car loans or store cards or any form of credit, it gets more expensive every month to pay that back. And that is compounded, like you say, by this high inflationary environment that we're finding ourselves in. I talk about how we're being impacted by the 3 Fs. The price of fuel has been going up. Luckily, we've got another decrease coming tomorrow, but we're still reeling from the previous increases. The price of food, although it's going up, we're seeing signs that those increases are slowing. And then the third F is quite frankly, anything related to anything fun we do, right? If you wanted to go on holiday, the cost of doing that has obviously gone up significantly in terms of travel costs. If you want to go out for dinner, the cost of doing that has increased a lot. So we're finding ourselves trying to manage our personal finances in a really, really tough environment.
Yeah, at the broader level, if I may ask you this, I just want your thoughts, Hayley, because you're sort of very au fait with money matters. I mean, government yesterday, in the person of the minister in the presidency, Mondli Gungubele, when he was talking to one of our reporters, they are meeting, there's a cabinet likhutla going on now, and I mean, he said government is very concerned at what the GDP numbers will show, because they don't know, what would the next plan be, but there is this talk of maybe looking at a relief package. I mean, many other countries in the world, like in the UK, in America, post-COVID-19 pandemic, with the challenges of economic growth globally and concerns about a recessionary climate that we're facing today, they're looking at relief packages. Do you think our government should be looking at that seriously as well?
So here's the thing. When you've had an economic contraction like we've just had announced this quarter, the first thing that everyone thinks about is what's coming next in the next quarter. Because one of the definitions of a recession is 2 negative growth periods in a row, right? So if we have another negative growth number coming through in the next quarter, that would technically put us in a recession. Now, thankfully, people who are a lot smarter than I am, they're not predicting that. So hopefully we can avoid a recession. You know, some of the reasons we're sitting with this negative growth in this quarter were the floods and the massive amount of load shedding that we experienced as a result of that. And so hopefully we can have a slightly more steady environment for business to conduct themselves in the next quarter, which should prevent us going into a recession, right? Mm-hmm. But that then still leaves us in a position where we have this environment that is not, that's really hard for consumers. And so that's when you start having government ministers talk about these relief packages. Whether or not that's a good idea, I don't know. I mean, obviously, everyone right now would love some extra relief. I think what we really need to do is try and figure out, though, how we can change the situation. How do we get growth firing instead of having this stagnating or currently, retreating growth? Because if we can get an environment where business is growing, then we've got employment figures increasing, we've got salaries increasing, and these problems will take care of themselves, without government needing to intervene with care and relief packages. So it's a tricky balance that they're going to have to walk and figure out. And I think, to be honest, what will probably be top of mind is seeing what happens in the next quarter to help determine whether that's necessary or not.
Yeah, but I guess like everything else, when the times are tight like they are and the economy is not growing, jobs are not being created, we also have to look at how we spend money, both as government but also as individuals.
Absolutely. One of the things I talk about when we're talking about managing our personal finances is, unfortunately, most of us don't do any growth when times are easy, right? When money's easy and times are easy, there's not really a need to look at our personal finances very closely. You can kind of let things go. But when you're finding yourself in a situation where there's more month than money, then it is going to force you to take a long, hard look at your finances and figure out how you can manage the money you do have better. It's something that I think our government might need to do as much as we need to do as consumers, right? Because the reality is that, unfortunately, managing your money is a learned skill, just like any other. But most of us never get taught it intentionally, right? This is not something that we were lucky enough to be taught at home or at school or, even at university. I have a commerce degree, and there wasn't a single module on managing your personal finances, as an example. And so this is an opportune time to actually take some time to educate yourself, get yourself a financial education, because if you can become better at managing the money you do have, it can reduce some of the pain that, unfortunately, we know is coming, right? Particularly when we know things like interest rates are going to increase and the cost of servicing debt is going to continue to increase further. Figuring out how you can reduce your debt, that's something that would really help improve your cash flow. Learning how to budget in a way that actually works for you. Budgeting is a verb, it's a doing word, right? This is something we actually have to do more than once a year. It's something we've got to do actively and consistently. These are small things that we can do that can make a big difference to actually not only our financial future, but also managing our stress. What I'm finding right now is, as we continue to get all this bad news around the economy and how it's going to impact our personal finances, a lot of people lose confidence. They feel like there's so much they can't control and they kind of give up. And what I say to that is focus on the things you can control and figure out how you can do it better. Because the moment you actually look at it and you stop burying your head in the sand and figure out, what can I do? What adjustments do I need to make? How do I need to make things so that I can weather what I know is, we can see the storm clouds, right? How can I weather it better when it comes to my money? This is an ideal time to get on top of that and make those changes.
These GDP figures coming out today should be a good reminder that you must use it as an opportunity to do exactly that, all of us. Thank you very much, Hayley. That's One Life's Truth About Money facilitator, Hayley Parry, just on the back of today's GDP figures, looking at them and saying it affects everybody, of course. When the economy is not growing, they can't create jobs, and when they can't create jobs, people won't earn salaries. If there are no salaries, there's no disposable income for consumers to spend. No consumption, the economy won't grow. So it's a vicious cycle. Do what you can during these tough times. And she is forecasting that we could be seeing another interest rate hike in September, which means the cost of debt is going to go higher in terms of your repayments. You're going to be paying more every month. Tough times indeed. Still